Before evil existed, before the serpent, before the garden, there was him. He was not a monster. He was not a shadow. He was not even a warning. He was gentle, wise, noble, and pure. He stood near the throne. He sang the songs that shaped creation. And for a long time, no name was praised higher among the angels. But perfection is fragile. It does not shatter from war. It cracks from a thought, just one, why not me? And with it, something ancient broke, something no one expected. Not at the foundations of heaven, but at the heart of the brightest star. Now he appears only scattered. A name scattered in poems, a whispered prophecy, sometimes a serpent, sometimes a dragon, sometimes merely an adversary. Yet the damage is real, and it does not end in heaven. This is not only the story of a fallen angel. This is a story of pride, of rebellion, of what happens when the light turns inward and refuses to bow. This is the story of Lucifer, the angel who became heaven's greatest enemy. Lucifer was not born to rebel. He did not rise from chaos. He was created in the light. In the oldest traditions, he is called the morning star, the brightest messenger in heaven, a being of unsurpassed beauty and majesty. His name, Lucifer, means bringer of light, a title once inspiring awe rather than fear. He stood among the angels not as one among many, but as a singular radiant being closer to perfection than anything that followed. Descriptions of his form are rare, hidden in poetry and visions, but they suggest something extraordinary. He sparkled like the jewels of Eden, sapphire, agate, topaz, and gold. His body clothed in glory, his presence like a fire without heat, a light without shadow. To look upon him is to feel smaller, not from fear, but from reverence. He did not command by threats. He inspired by presence, the kind of one others follow, not because they are told to, but because they desire to. He was not a messenger. He was not a soldier. He was something more. It is said that Lucifer stood near the throne in the deepest sanctuary of heaven. Some traditions call him the guardian angel, the protector of sacred mysteries. Others believe he held a rank above the archangels, perhaps a role no longer known today. Whoever he was honored. He guided worship not by words, but by essence. Some believe music flowed through him, that his very being emitted harmony that bound creation together. He was not only in heaven, he was part of how it functioned, part of how it shone. He was powerful, respected, and handsome. But such beauty comes at a cost, and brilliance casts long shadows. For a time there was no flaw, no question, no error. But it did not last, not even in heaven. It did not begin with fire or wrath, no explosion of fury, no anguished cry against the heavens. It began in a far quieter way, so gentle that at first no one noticed, not even him. Lucifer was not born a villain. He was admired, trusted, and respected, not only for his beauty, but for his role among the angels. He was the steward of harmony, keeper of divine order, a radiant presence others gladly followed. Wherever he walked, there was light. Whatever he spoke was clear, and for a time no one bore the burden of heaven more gracefully. He was not prideful. He was calm. In him was nobility, solemnity, confidence, and steadfastness. Some said his voice could move the stars. Others believed his mind was sharper than any sword in heaven. He did not simply obey heaven's laws. He understood them, upheld them, embodied them, and for centuries that was enough. But something was stirring slowly, quietly beneath the surface. Lucifer was not angry. He asked, not with bitterness, but with reason. He did not demand power. He wondered why it was not his. Why should one alone rule all? Why should eternity revolve around a single will? Why should there be no other, no worthy one to stand in that place? Such thoughts seemed harmless. At first they were. They came as whispers in the dark, slipping between his duties, rooted in a place where only obedience once existed. And because no angel had ever fallen, no one knew what to seek. They saw a leader, a brother, a man, with vision beyond the horizon. No one perceived that slow fracture. He still sang those songs. He still stood near the throne. But within his heart, the focus had shifted. No longer content to serve greatness, he began to imagine becoming great himself. No declarations, no shouting, no anger, only silence. And in that silence, ambition, pride, the first spark of disobedience, and above all, that is what made it so perilous. Lucifer did not fall instantly. He slipped beginning with a single thought. He was powerful, but it was not strength alone that made Lucifer dangerous. It was how he carried it. Like fire beneath still water, serene on the surface, burning inside Lucifer was not merely another angel in the chorus. He was among the highest in rank, perhaps the highest depending on the tradition. Not only in status, but in intellect and command, in an unshakable presence. Where others bowed, he stood firm. Where others sang, he led the chorus. Where others obeyed, he understood. In ancient texts, he is called the guardian angel, standing so close to the throne of the Lord that some believe he guarded it. Others say he reflected it as the moon reflects the sun, radiant, majestic, and alive with borrowed power. Then his voice rose. Not merely a sound, it was a force layered, harmonious, resonating beyond human comprehension. A voice that could stir emotions from the depths of reality, evoking awe, joy, fear, or peace without a single word. With that voice, he led the heavenly host in worship. And when he sang, the angels sang along. He held dominion over fire and mastery over light. Some say he could bend the laws of the higher realms, move across planes, control energy, influence the spirits of lesser beings with but a glance. Yet the most dangerous weapon he ever wielded was influence. Lucifer did not rise by force. He did not need to. His power was effortless. His presence did not demand attention. It invited it. Even among angels, he was admired, respected, trusted, and that is why his betrayal was so devastating. For war does not begin with a sword, it begins with a whisper. Lucifer used his power not to destroy, but to persuade. He sowed doubt quietly and carefully, not towards the Lord, but towards the hierarchy, towards the notion that only one should reign. He spoke not of hatred, but of vision, a new order, a restructured heaven, where freedom was not a gift from above, but a right deserved. And it worked. He moved through the ranks like wind through tall grass, subtle, continuous, invisible, until it was too late. He did not coerce the angels to follow him. He inspired them. He knew their desires, their questions, their silent yearning for purpose beyond endless obedience. He gave them what they did not know. They wanted the idea of choice. And so, an army arose not from the shadows, but from heaven itself. Tens, hundreds, perhaps a third of those present stood with him. Not in open rebellion, but in silent consent. They followed not out of fear, but because they believed in him. They saw in him a new kind of leader, one who was flawed, free, powerful, not because he was appointed, but because he dared. The Bible describes what followed with terse, poetic words. There was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon was Lucifer transformed by pride, not physically distorted, but in essence still an entity, but darker, sharper, no longer a guardian of light, but a force of disruption. Then the heavens shook. Michael rose. The Bible describes what followed with brief poetic words. There was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon was Lucifer transformed by pride, not physically distorted, but fundamentally altered, still an entity of its kind, yet darker, sharper, no longer a steward of light, but a force of chaos. And then the heavens shook. Michael stood, not with speeches, not with arguments, but with silence and the sword. He could not reason with him. He came to restore order. The battle that followed was not glorious. It was not filled with noble speeches or divine miracles. It was cruel and sorrowful. Heaven turned against itself, not because God had failed, but because Lucifer had failed. He had everything: power, praise, closeness. Yet he abandoned the one thing that made him truly holy: submission. And without that, he failed. No matter how bright the flame, no matter how profound the faith, Lucifer's rebellion could not overcome the truth. And when it ended, it was truly the end. Lucifer fell not because he was weak, but because pride always shatters before it is subdued. The first fracture, the first challenge came, and it belonged to one of them. When the war ended, he did not remain silent. He was forcefully cast out, thrown down like a bolt of lightning, not drifting, but plunging straight down, pulled from the heights where he once stood as one of the mightiest heroes. Some legends say that the gates of heaven slammed shut behind him like the iron gates of an ancient prison. Others imagine echoing screams in the void. His wings burned until blackened and twisted, leaving a trail of fire as he fell through the worlds. But he did not fall alone. The army that followed him, angels who once stood in the palace of glory, who once sang divine melodies, were torn apart alongside him, taking a third of the heavens. Some say this is a staggering number. They were not traitors by nature, but traitors by faith. They believed in him, and now they share his punishment. They were cast down in fire and wrath, their forms distorted by the fall. Once radiant, now terrifying. Their wings, once symbols of holy purpose, became the twisted shapes of fury. Their voices, once harmonious, now turned into cries of anguish, mockery, and madness. Yet like their leader, they did not vanish. They endured. What rose from the ashes was no longer angels of light. That radiance, that beauty which once inspired awe was gone, or, worse, destroyed. Instead, there was an entity reshaped by hatred. The pain of rejection, the sting of shame, the fury of denied ambition. Some say his new form reflects his downfall, grotesque horn smoldering, his once glorious wings now tattered and ragged, his light turned to darkness, his voice once a multi-layered choir, now a sharp, cold hiss filled with venom, instilling fear and defiance. But others claim the opposite. They say he still retains beauty, still shines, still charms, still speaks melodiously, because evil at its most dangerous does not appear in grotesque form. It appears in desire, intellect, and allure. The most dangerous lies are not ugly. They sound like the truth you long to hear. He is no longer Lucifer. That name, the morning star, is a relic of his former self. Now he is Hatan, the adversary in Hebrew, the accuser, the opposer one, who stands not beside heaven, but against it. And with this new name, he takes on a new role. He no longer preserves the order of creation. He will expose it. No longer a servant, now a destroyer. No longer a protector, now a tempter. The fallen angels with him follow suit. They become the first demons not born of darkness, but from unfulfilled light. They keep memories of heaven, of structure, of what once was. And within those memories burns bitterness. Their forms change to reflect the weight of that loss. Some grotesque, some still beautiful, their appearances shaped by the sins they chose and the suffering they endured. They become his legion, bound not by chains, but by loyalty distorted by pain. No longer heralds of the divine, but instruments of deception. Each one learned the art of corruption, seduction lying beneath the guise of truth. They scatter throughout kingdoms, some bound beneath the earth, others wandering unseen, but all waiting, watching, whispering. His power has been altered but not erased. He still holds influence, still understands the workings of angelic thought, still commands authority in his voice. But where once he inspired reverence, now his power was altered but not erased. He still held influence, still understood the workings of angelic thought, still carried authority in his voice. But where once he inspired reverence, now he stirred doubt. Where once he led people to worship, now he seduced them into rebellion. No longer a light to follow, he became a shadow to fall into. He no longer builds, but only distorts. He does not seek to reign in heaven, so he will poison the earth. And if he cannot be Lord, then he will be the Lord of those who reject him. There will be no need for open armies, no need for thrones seized by force. His weapons are more subtle, more effective. Whispers temptation, a timely question, a slightly altered truth, a carefully awakened desire. The war is not over. It has only changed shape. He has lost heaven's heights, but he can still reach. And now more than ever, he has purpose. To corrupt what God loved. To destroy what God created, to draw others away from the path he had chosen. Not by fire, not by force, but by the very thoughts that led to his own fate. You can do far more than that. Greetings to all. We have a short break here. I want to thank you for watching this video. It truly means a great deal to me. Did you know that over 80% of those watching right now have not subscribed to this channel? If you have enjoyed the content so far, it would be wonderful if you could press the subscribe button. It is a small gesture, but it truly helps the channel grow and ensures you will not miss any compelling stories we explore together. Also, if you are generous, please give this video a like, leave a comment, and share it with anyone else who might appreciate it. Your support really makes a difference and helps keep the content coming. Thank you once again, and now let us return to the story. Lucifer had fallen, yet his end was not complete. Though cast out of heaven, his presence remained like smoke from a flame that refuses to die. What he lost in status, he gained in purpose. And that purpose did not lead him to a battlefield or a throne, but to something far more subtle, the beginning of humanity. The Garden of Eden remained intact, shining in purity. It was a place, without sorrow or pride, where creation vibrated with divine harmony. Every leaf, every breath, every moment reflected intention. Men and women walked without shame their souls, without fear. No violence, no betrayal, no concept of separation from the Creator. It was peace in its most innocent form, and it was in this stillness that he struck. Not with thunder or fire, not with armies or violence. He came gently, quietly, not like the monster many later imagined, but like something intelligent, familiar, and persuasive. The Bible describes a serpent more cunning than any creature moving in the garden. But whether the serpent was literally a serpent or something more, the blend of beauty and intelligence cloaked in subtle power remains true. He was very persuasive. He did not charge in willfully. He was not despised. He did not roar. He whispered. His weapon was not pain, it was a suggestion. Just a simple question, a seed of doubt. He knew that rupture does not begin with rebellion, but with hesitation. And once that hesitation took root, desire would follow, desire for knowledge, desire for power, desire for more. Eve listened, and then Adam followed. With that single act, the purity of Eden was broken. Not because of the fruit itself, but because of what it symbolized, doubt. The moment trust was broken, the bond between Creator and creation began to unravel. Shame arose. Innocence vanished. Eyes were opened not to behold wisdom, but to bear the burden of disobedience. The serpent did not merely tempt them to eat the forbidden fruit. He changed their hearts. And in that change, exile occurred. This was not a victory measured by force, but by silence, by the subtle fracture of something once whole. Lucifer, now fully in the role of Satan, the adversary, shed the first blood in human history, not by conquering the earth, but by corrupting the only thing heaven had made in its own image. He did not need to seize power. He did not need to build a kingdom. He only needed to rewrite the first chapter, and he did. The garden was sealed. Humanity was cast out, and behind them, in lost innocence, Satan smiled, not in triumph, but in satisfaction. Heaven was closed to him forever, but the earth had only just begun to bleed. Lucifer could no longer return to heaven. That door was shut, but the story of his fall did not end. There, he sought to regain his lost influence, and so he resolved to pursue something new. Not to rise again, but to hollow out what still stood. He would not build a throne. By light, he would not gather armies for open defiance. His kingdom would be far more dangerous, quiet, and slow. In the earliest days of humanity, long ago, after the Garden of Eden was closed, a strange current flowed beneath the surface of the world. The first cities did not rise in harmony, but in pride. The first blood was shed not for justice, but out of wrath. And behind every brokenness, behind every proud gesture or cruel decision, there is always a shadow lurking. Not always visible, yet always present. He did not conquer the earth by force. He invaded it through corruption. The Bible describes him as the God of this world, not by title, but by reach. He is not everywhere present, yet he does not need to be. The systems he established, greed, fear, vanity, control, work on his behalf. Across generations, he has set a twisted framework where truth can be distorted and worship can be bought. His throne is not forged of gold, but built from pride. And throughout that time, he has adapted. He does not bring destruction. He offers alternatives. He does not deny the sacred. He counterfeits it. He slips into temples and bestows upon himself many names, sometimes divine, sometimes king. Each culture gives him a new face, a new story. But the eyes behind those masks never change. Whether manifested through law, myth, or monarchy, his message remains unchanged. You need not serve. You may rule. Lucifer no longer bears the form of heaven's guardian. He has become something altogether different, a distorting power, a twisted presence without touch. And nowhere is this more clear and troubling than in the book of Job. There he does not stand as a beast or monster, but as an accuser permitted to speak before the heavenly court. Not because he holds power, but because God allows the test to unfold. He is not enraged. He poses a question. Does Job fear the Lord in vain? It is not a test of strength, but of intent. He regards righteousness as a transaction, goodness as a means to reward. And this is his deceit. He has learned that the most effective lie is not a brazen lie. They seem reasonable. He ceases to use force to break man and begins to confuse them with questions, subtle provocations, and deceptive logic. He blurs the lines between freedom and rebellion, enlightenment and pride. He knows what moves people, their fears, ambitions, and need for control, and he gives each exactly what they desire. To the proud he offers praise, to the fearful he grants control, to the broken he offers excuse, and to all a new center, the self. His greatest power is not violence, it is deception. He does not merely oppose God, he redefines the terms of obedience. And more than any fire or wrath, his kingdom has become such: a slow decay, a hidden hand, a voice not in thunder, but in thought, not a monster in darkness, but a deceiver in the light. Throughout the entire Bible, there is no rivalry more profound and more misunderstood than the rivalry between Lucifer and Christ. One is the Word made flesh, the light no darkness can overcome. The other is inward-focused light, brilliance shattered. They are not equals, have no power, no origin, yet in the story they oppose each other. One obedient, the other rebellious, one humble, the other proud, and over time they meet. Their relationship is not that of siblings or mirrored gods, but of clashing roles: justice and accusation, salvation and temptation, shepherd and wolf. And when they meet, the world changes. This does not happen in heaven or hell, but in the silence of the wilderness. Christ had just begun his earthly mission, baptized, chosen, and led by the Holy Spirit into the wilderness. And thereafter, 40 days without food, Satan came. He did not attack, he questioned. If you are the Son of God, the radiant has been shattered. They are not equals, have no power, no origin, yet in the story they oppose one another. One obeys, one rebels, one is humble, one is proud, and over time they meet. Their relationship is not that of siblings or reflecting gods, but of clashing roles: justice and accusation, salvation and temptation, the shepherd and the wolf. And when they meet, the world changes. This did not happen in heaven or hell, but in the silence of the wilderness. Christ had just begun his earthly mission, baptized, chosen, and led by the Holy Spirit into solitude. And thereafter, 40 days without food, Satan came. He did not attack. He questioned. If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become bread. He did not pray over hunger. This was about identity. He offered food, then glory, then power. All the kingdoms of the world, all the splendor, all without suffering. And Christ, unlike Adam, unlike Israel, unlike every soul before him, did not break. He answered not with defiance, but with scripture, not with anger, but with truth. This was Lucifer's second great failure. He had tempted angels. He had deceived humanity. But now, faced with the incarnate Word, he could not pierce the silence of obedience. And so he left him until a more opportune time. Yet Satan did not cease. In the shadow of the gospel, Satan entered Judas Iscariot not by force, but by invitation. Through bitterness, through pride, through quiet despair. It was not a wild possession, it was a whispered agreement. Judas betrayed the Christ with a kiss, selling the Son of Man for silver. And in that act, Lucifer believed he had won, that the cross was a defeat, that death had stolen divinity. But what he did not see, what he never understood, was that the cross was not defeat. It was a doorway. 3 days passed, and then something happened no prince of darkness anticipated. The gates of hell were broken. According to ancient Christian tradition, especially the Gospel of Nicodemus and early church writings, Christ descended to the dead, not as a victim, but as a victor. In some accounts, Lucifer and Hades, the personification of the underworld, felt the doom. Lucifer, the eternal accuser, mocked him, but no one could stop what came next. The chains were broken. The gates collapsed, and the righteous souls, Adam, Eve, David, the prophets, were brought forth, led by Christ in triumph. Lucifer was humiliated not by force, but by mercy. Lucifer and Christ never truly contended as equals, but they clashed as opposites. Lucifer sought to rise above God. Christ humbled himself beneath all things. Lucifer desired to reign. Without suffering, Christ suffered to reign. One grasped divinity and fell. The other freed divinity and rose. And so their story diverged. Lucifer became the adversary, the divider, accuser, and distorter. Christ became the redeemer, healer, intercessor, and restorer. Their paths crossed briefly, but their contrast endured forever. Where Lucifer inflicted wounds, Christ is the healing scar. When Lucifer whispered, "You could be better," Christ replied, "You are already loved," and ultimately it will not be a battle that decides their fate. It will be a judgment already written. It always takes precedence here. With all his cunning, with all the ages shaping, the course of human history from the shadows, Lucifer's story will never end in victory. Revelation offers no ambiguity or escape. His final chapter is not mysterious but clear, cold, unyielding, and absolute. After millennia imprisoned in the abyss, there will come a foretold and inevitable moment when he is released. Not as an act of mercy, not as a second chance, but as a final test, a last moment to reveal the human heart and once again prove who he truly is. He appears unmasked without subtlety or allure. The age of disguise is over. Now he reveals his face. The deceiver returns to the world he once distorted, and immediately by instinct he does what he always does. He gathers the scattered and proud, the bitter and blinded, countless souls from every corner of the earth, united by the ancient temptation, the belief that God can still be challenged. But this is not the final war. There is no true conflict between good and evil, only the illusion of one. Before any blow lands before his trained armies can raise voices or swing swords, fire comes down from heaven. Not a fire of vengeance, but a fire of finality. It falls swiftly without resistance. No battle, only judgment. Lucifer is seized not in battle, but by decree. His power, once boundless in influence, has now vanished. The voice that once stirred rebellion across realms is silenced. The mind that distorted truth no longer holds sway. He is no longer the serpent, the accuser, or prince of anything. He is a prisoner stripped of all titles, stripped of purpose. All that remains is the echo of his being and the weight of what he has wrought. Then comes the verdict, the lake of fire. Not a kingdom, not a realm to rule, but the final exile. It is not his domain, it is his prison. Here he does not govern demons or tempt the lost. He does not pull strings in darkness or whisper behind veils. Here it is nothing, no longer fearful, no longer watched. He is bound in silence and cast into oblivion. His punishment is not merely pain, but erasure, complete and eternal separation from the sacred light before which he once stood. With all the fear he inspired, with all the kingdoms he defiled, and the souls he led astray, his end is neither grand nor noble. This is a warning, a stern reminder of what pride becomes when it reaches its peak. Lucifer, once the morning star, does not end as a god, nor as a legend, but as a warning etched into eternity. The story of Lucifer does not conclude with exile or even his judgment. It leaves its mark on theology, on myth, on how we define evil. Whether taken as literal truth or powerful symbol, his downfall has become the ultimate cautionary tale, a story of unchecked pride, of ambition against its very creator. Over time, his image has changed. A serpent in the garden, a dragon forged from the heavens, a whisperer, a tempter, an adversary, sometimes tragic, sometimes fearsome, but always carrying the same hidden message. Within even the wisest may fall, and the notion of light turning to darkness remains with us. Lucifer has become more than a character. He has become the standard by which all rebellion is measured, a living symbol of defiance and of what befalls those who dare oppose their creator. Not merely a villain, not just a name, but a legacy engraved in every story that dares to ask, what if? Music.